All right, there are plans in the works to bring a water slide park to First Lake in Lower Sackville. This first came to light about 3 weeks ago. To me, somebody called the show during the call-in segment of the Rick Howe Show and brought this up, and it has been a swirl of controversy ever since. I had one of the business partners on the show on Friday talking about all of this. There's a petition going online petition opposing this plan for Splashifax to set this thing up. Jeffery Thibeau is responsible for the petition and joins me to chat about all of this. Jeff, thanks for doing this today. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate you taking the time to let the community have a voice in this as well. So thank you, Todd.
You got it. So how's the online petition going to this point?
As of right now, we're standing at 446 signatories on that, and we're going up daily. So it's only been open since the public session. I actually started at the night of the public session that they had, and it was actually because I was unable to sleep that night, so that's what I did instead.
Of the 450, how many, and I suppose you wouldn't know this, but what's your feeling on how many are local Lower Sackville residents, and are people outside of that area concerned about this as well, or is this mainly a localized concern?
So what I'm seeing, I'm actually, as the administrator, I'm able to see the names that are popping up, and I recognize a lot of the names. I recognize names of folks that I went to school with and folks that I know from the community. And I see like families signing on. So, some of the folks that have signed it may not necessarily live in the community, but they would have, interest in this not happening because they may have grown up in this community or still bring their kids to visit their parents and stuff like that. So from what I see, a good portion of it is from the community.
All right, bullet point, if you will, and I don't know if it's any particular of order of importance, but bullet point a few of your main concerns with this thing, if you will.
So it really falls into four categories. We really have environmental impact. There's some public safety issues, poor planning by the company, and then impact to the community. So with regards to the environmental concerns, this is a really fragile ecosystem in this lake. It was brought to the brink of destruction once, about 50 years ago, because of development in the area. And it's only recently come back, and we're seeing more fish. We're seeing snapping turtles. We're seeing loons nesting on the lake again. So the lake is starting to heal itself from already getting beat up quite a few years ago, right?
Okay, may I interject? Okay, because some people say it's a public area anyway. It's just kids swimming, and some flotation things in the water. Why is that impacting the ecosystem? What do you say to that?
So the specific impacts that we're really looking at is they want to sink 20 Jersey barriers into the lake, and they'll refer to them as moorings, but we're talking about those the big concrete things that separate highways. And those can actually leach alkali into the lake, and there's studies that suggest that can kill fish in the lake. Mm-hmm. There's also the dunking of the life jackets into sanitizer, the cleaning of the equipment, as well as the amount of sunscreen that's going into the lake. And there's actually a really good contact, in case you wanted to contact her. Linda Campbell at St. Mary's University has done a lot of studies on the impact of aquatic life with regards to sunscreen. So those are the big main ones. And likely as well, we'll see an increased traffic of boating on the lake as well, which could bring more environmental impact. So really, like when these folks talk about coming in to set up this business, they're talking about the 4% of the lake surface that they're going to be impacting. But really what we should be talking about is the volume of the lake, because this is a small, shallow lake that has one stream feeding it and one stream emptying it. So it's not really about the surface area. And the other thing that you'll hear these guys talking about is that they're comparing it to the other installations elsewhere in the Maritimes. So the one in PEI is not comparable because it's on the waterfront in salt water in a commercial district next to a wharf. And the one in New Brunswick is on the St. John River, which is a 673-kilometer river with high flow, and it's near a highway overpass and a campground in a low population density area. So really, First Lake is not comparable to the other installations because it is such a small, shallow volume lake that doesn't have a lot of turnover of water. And with regards to public safety, the number one issue with constituents in the last election was speeding and increase of traffic, specifically on First Lake Drive. and there hasn't been any satisfactory fixes that have been put in place, and we still see a lot of traffic rolling through this area. And it's dangerous for the community that we'd be putting something in to increase this flow of traffic without considering the ramifications. These gentlemen are also talking about having one security guard on land that would secure this in the evenings, which I don't think is really sufficient. I feel like there's going to be some folks that would be accessing it after hours and at night, and that would cause issues for safety for our residents.
Let me ask you on the traffic thing, Jeff. Just on the traffic thing, isn't there a curling club or something? There's a rink there or something already in that direct area, is there not?
Yep. Yeah. So right on First Lake Drive, we have a Sobeys, a liquor store, a rink, and a public community center, as well as a bingo center with the Thibeau Club, which is for gymnastics as well. Right.
So the argument could be put forward that there's already a lot of activity there. This is just a few more cars in that area. What's the problem? What do you say to that?
Well, these are all installations that don't run 7 days a week for 10 hours a day for 90 days straight. We're talking about, we have some folks in that would use the rink for playing hockey, and we have bingo on nights and stuff like that. And all of those things happen, and they do increase the traffic. But to add this on top of that, this is potentially 50 people an hour, and I don't know how many cars that would necessarily make because I don't have a crystal ball, but there will be a significant increase in traffic where we're talking about that many people being added to the flow of traffic within this small community, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and with public safety, another issue that we have is the proximity to the liquor store. These guys say that they're not going to be serving liquor, but I don't buy that folks won't be having a puff and having a wobbly pop on the way to go and jump on the big unicorn. And they've also had no talk of engineering controls with regards to like fencing or how this is going to be secured to the bottom. So there's a big public safety issue there. Poor planning. These guys, they make lots of claims, but in the meeting that I saw, they didn't actually have any data to back up any of their claims. And they're actually refusing to do an environmental impact study. So despite the fact that they say that they don't feel it's going to have an impact on the lake, they don't actually have any data, nor do they plan on getting any data to discuss whether or not that is actually true or not. In the meeting, they were also unaware of the lifeguard levels that were required for a swimming area like this. And when corrected by one of the community members, they kind of sloughed off the question and didn't bother to answer it. They also seem to be unaware of the regulatory requirements that are in place. They in the meeting they said that we couldn't find anything that applies to this, so we're just not going to do anything. We're just going to move ahead with it. The area that they're building this in is also not zoned for it. They're talking about P1 and P2. And those areas do not permit commercial recreation uses. So they have some big hurdles to jump, even without someone like me giving a voice to the community.
Okay, and, hang on, Jeff, hang on. They said that the gentleman that I had on the show, he said that they beat on doors and made phone calls tirelessly trying to get information from all levels of government as to what's required here. And they just ran into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. With the suggestion is they exhausted every channel they could to get proper zoning, et cetera, et cetera. What's your response to that?
Well, that would be a two-part response. The first part, I would say, I feel like I may know more about their business at this point than they do. Just in the 2 weeks that I've been looking into it, I know of a number of things that they have to apply for, and they only applied for their first application with the federal government this week, which is funny because I don't know if you've ever put in an application with the federal government, but it's not going to turn around in 28 days. Yeah. And then, the other part of that is sorry, could you re-ask the question again?
Yeah, no, just about the zoning and the permits and again, and I think you've addressed it actually. So that's, I think you dealt with that. When it comes to what this group will do, are you fearful that despite all of this, that they might just set up shop anyway and start operating and perhaps roll the dice and how it all plays out? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm scared on that because even if they do roll the dice, a lot of this damage will be done to the lake and to our community. Even if they decide to wrap up and leave, if they're not successful, I think that a lot of the damage will be done. Even just talking about scraping up the bottom of the lake with these moorings, that's permanent damage that will take some time to fix itself. I'm worried that they are going to just come in and do what they want, because there's been a couple of instances of that already. For a photo opportunity, they've actually already gone on to HRM land and removed vegetation without consent. So these guys are already moving stuff ahead without going through the proper avenues. And another thing is I don't like to speak ill of people, but I know that Mr. Wolpen was interviewed on your station back in 2013 talking about Driver Dave's, and he essentially said that he didn't agree with the rules that were in place, and that he couldn't wait to have those approved, so he just had to go and do something else anyway. So there's been precedent set in the past that these guys don't necessarily think of all the ramifications and everything that need to be in place. So there definitely is a fear in the community that these guys are gonna roll in and do their thing. And they say that they want to be stewards of the lake, but I don't believe you're being a steward of the lake if you're not doing an environmental assessment. And I don't believe that you're being a good neighbor the way that they say that they want to be if you haven't consulted the community that you're moving into. The new proposed location is actually directly across the street from residential areas. And one of the arguments early in this was that they're going to be far away from any houses, but now their new proposed location is less than 100 meters from houses, right? They're going to be right across the street from a residential area. There's also going to be another person right beside them that's going to have this right beside them. That's literally going to be their next door neighbor, right? So I don't buy a lot of what they're saying, and I don't really trust a lot of their planning so far.
Okay, they've done some outreach when it comes to hiring, have they not? Have they interviewed people, lifeguards, or are they taking names for hiring? I think they posted jobs, didn't they, or something like that?
Yep. Again, this is another cart before the horse thing that they came out with a big splash on social media, and they said that they're starting to hire people, but they don't really have any of this in place. And to my knowledge, they've also applied for federal grants to hire people, but to my knowledge, I believe that they have to have everything in place according to the rules of that federal funding before they start hiring. And I don't believe they've even done that to this point, right? If you don't have all of the things in place that you need to have, and you're already hiring people, I already believe they're in contravention of the federal money that they're receiving for this, right?
Okay. Lastly, I'm just about out of time here, and we'll definitely be chatting again in the future. But I got a tweet from somebody who says, "This is a classic, not in my backyard issue. The lake may operate 60 days a year." What do you say to that?
Well, I do have to dispel some rumors. So I get a lot of feedback online that I must be a 55-year-old pensioner who lives on the lake and has lakefront property. I do want to dispel that and say, I'm in my 30s. I have a young family. I don't have lakefront property, but I do use the trails, and this is a lake that I learned to paddle on and that I plan on teaching my daughter to paddle on this summer. And it's a community-owned lake, right? And as for the whole not in my backyard thing, it is tough because there is, you have to give consideration to the folks that are going to be living directly adjacent to this, right? And sure. It's not for me, it's not my backyard, but it's very going to be very close to our houses, and it is going to impact our quality of living in this neighborhood.
Where can people find the petition, Jeff?
So the petition can be found on change.org/no-Splashifax. And I really appreciate you letting me give a shout out to that, because we also saw a very big bump after I did an interview with Global Media, and we saw a really big bump yesterday. And I think that we'll see a big bump again today after you have me on the show. So I really appreciate you giving me a chance to speak for my community and for the lake.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll be in touch. Take care.
Perfect. You too. Thanks.
You got it, Jeffery Thibeau. And I'm going to talk more about this. I'll hold my comments back until we open the phone lines between noon and 1. Travis, hello.
Good day. How are you?
I'm well. You?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks.
Great.
Just want to make a comment on an earlier guest, Jeff Thibeau, I think it was.
Yeah, Jeff Thibeau was.
I think if the lake had a voice, I think Jeff nailed everything that the lake would say. I just think that he hit everything on the head of every concern of residents, lake concerns. I think he just nailed it.
Yeah, I think I have no skin in the game here whatsoever. I don't live in the area. I truly don't. So I don't have any motivation to take a side here, but my instincts side with their concerns and those opposing this. I'll be honest with you. I did have the business owner on the show, and we'll do that again, but you're absolutely right. When it comes to the lake, these large moorings, they call them Jersey barriers, I think it was. They're going to drop 20 of those. They're huge. They'll disrupt the lake. I thought he said it's a small, shallow lake, just one stream coming in, one stream going out. There are two other examples that they cite in the Maritimes as parks, and they've had no problems. One's on the ocean. One's on the St. John River, for goodness sakes, not comparable. I think that, yes, sunscreen is already used there. It's a recreational area. However, the volume of sunscreen and the cleaning and all of that would be a factor in this ecosystem. I think he made some excellent points. That's just my take on it, Travis.
Yeah, same with me. And no pun intended. If they wanted to make a splash, make sure they had their unicorns in a row first.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, and there are other things too. It's not zoned properly. There's real legitimate questions about how they went about this whole thing. I think that anyway, I have no horse in the race here. I have no motivation. Just based on how I viewed it, I'm tending to think that this thing should not happen and probably won't. But that's just my take. Thanks, Travis. But you have to look at it in its totality. And is this something that I would want? No. Is it NIMBY? Not in my backyard? No, I'm not. It's not my backyard. So it's not that for me.